I'm the second of four Steve Corneliussens. The tall one who spoke a little earlier is the third, and the fourth one is one of the very tiny identical twins there. Story City. That's the Iowa hometown where my dad was born 99 years ago, a century ago. To us little kids arriving for a visit, it was an enchanting name, Story City. Today I propose to tell a story about Story City. When you give a eulogy, you're supposed to say we're here to celebrate, not to mourn. Well, that's my story. Of all memorial services, it seems to me, this is one for celebration over mourning. It has to do with the greatest generation, mentioned earlier by the military man who so kindly honored my dad at the beginning of the service. It has to do with people like my mom and dad who endured the Depression. Then they won the war, World War II. Then they raised us and grandchildren, and in my dad's case, 6 great-grandchildren. Sean, who you saw, his brother Thomas, Audrey, Lucy over there, Matthew, and the aforementioned Stephen. My sisters have adopted, as you saw from Christy, my dad's recent practice of exclaiming, "All joy." They learned it from him during recent months when they sacrificed selflessly and when he endured old age discomfort cheerfully. My faithful sisters helped my naval aviator dad take off for his final flight. All joy, they say. Think of the post-World War II blessings of joy for members of the greatest generation, or anyway, for the ones who survived the war. For this Story City story about celebration, not mourning, please hold that thought. My dad never forgot that he was a blessed survivor. One such joy for him was hearing the stuff little kids said. Too bad my late mom never heard the story my dad lived to cherish about their eldest great-grandchild, Sean. Sean's big and sophisticated now, as you saw when he spoke. But one day when he was just a little guy, he and I were shelling peanuts from a bowl. Gradually it became harder to find the peanuts among the empty shells. Sean suggested what should have been obvious to me. Why not just get another bowl? There was a time long ago, I exclaimed in all earnestness, when I was almost half as smart as Sean. I meant it too, and he knew I meant it. So in completely friendly, total innocence, Sean replied, "You're a bit dumb, right?" My dad loved stuff like that. But as people from Story City learned, others from the greatest generation never got that kind of joy. Consider my dad's boyhood friend, First Lieutenant Al Ossie, United States Army Air Corps, P-40 pilot. He grew up swimming and playing ball and messing around with my dad and 2 other close friends in Story City. I want to show you a picture. If you can't see it from the back, it'll be clear enough anyway. Al Ossie and my dad played football together in high school, but they also played in college at St. Olaf College. This is my dad, who was the center on the team. And this is Al Ossie, who was a hotshot halfback. Earlier this year, online, I found a picture of the lieutenant in uniform. I sprung it on my dad. I didn't realize it would make him gulp in surprise, but it did. My dad loved Al Ossie, and still loved him 3/4 of a century after the lieutenant managed to survive the Bataan Death March in the Philippines. And my dad still loved him 3/4 of a century after the American torpedoing of the Japanese prisoner ship in which Al Ossie died. Lieutenant Ossie never lived to hear a story like the ones about my dad's great-grandson Thomas, whom I call Hawkeye, because that's what he is. Once Hawkeye was riding with his grandma Sarah. He spotted one of those rooftop wind vanes with a rooster that swivels. "Grandma," Hawkeye reported, "I saw a chicken on a stick." My dad loved stuff like that. But unlike my dad, who always was the first to remember that he outlived his dear friend 3/4 of a century, unlike my dad, Lieutenant Ossie never had a great-grandchild. In the 1950s, we lived not far from here. We lived over off Granby Street in West Belvedere. My dad regularly took my sisters and me swimming at the Navy base. We had Easter egg hunts at City Park. On several evenings, it took us to High's Ice Cream by the Granby Street Bridge. We attended the Trinity Lutheran Church on Granby Street. There are family photos of us that could be used to symbolize that era. Dad had commanded several squadrons by then and had become a full commander. Those were happy days. But Al Ossie had been gone for more than a decade. Question: should we mourn my dad? Or should we celebrate the long, happy life he always said he was blessed to have? In your imagination, consider two more pictures of my dad. The first is from his formal Navy retirement in 1965. By then he was a captain. He was relinquishing command of a C-130 squadron in Norfolk. In the huge hangar, the men were lined up in their dress whites. Dad was wearing dress whites and medals and a ceremonial sword. I remember the last thing he said in his remarks. My dad was always ready to wrap himself in the flag. "As long as we have men like you," he told those hundreds of sailors, "our flag long will wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." But that's not the photograph I remember the best. I remember better a second one. Not long after he retired, he volunteered to serve with the Red Cross among our servicemen and servicewomen in Vietnam. In a figurative sense, he was wrapping himself in the flag. You know, he didn't have to go to Vietnam. For heaven's sake, he had served throughout World War II, and then a lot more. But he volunteered and went. And he went with no grandness of dress whites or medals or gold braid. He went in a simple Red Cross shirt. Red Cross patch, name on the front, looks like a private soldier. He wore that with a simple Red Cross ball cap. Medals and gold braid mean a lot. But volunteering, it seems to me, and taking a risk, and sacrificing, and accepting modesty in the place of grandness, those mean more. And my dad displayed all of that. Dad's Red Cross service was a half-century ago. By then, World War II was long over. Dad had already owned German cars and was soon to own Japanese ones too. But he hadn't forgotten his boyhood friend, Paul Donhow. In Story City, when Dad and Al Ossie went swimming or played ball or horsed around, Paul Donhow was there too. Paul became Lieutenant Junior Grade Paul Kermit Donhow, United States Navy, a naval aviator like his friend, my dad. He flew the Grumman F-6F. On March 28, 1943, in a training operation with Canadian flyers, Lieutenant J.T. Donhow died in midair. Maybe if that hadn't happened, Paul too would have lived to experience some of the joy that filled my dad's and mom's hearts for so many decades. Maybe he would have had a little great-granddaughter like Lucy. Maybe he would have maybe she would have delighted him the way Lucy has been known to do. Dad never heard this Lucy story because it happened too recently, but he would have loved it. Lucy is 4. The other day I asked her if she knew what a tattoo is. She did. She's actually 4 going on 24, like her cousin Audrey is 5 going on 25. I put my hand on my left side back pocket and reported to Lucy that I was going to have Audrey's name tattooed there. She looked at me askance. Then I put my hand on my right side back pocket and reported to Lucy that I was going to have Lucy's name tattooed there. She looked at her brow furrowed. "What do you think of that?" I asked. Her reply, "That's the wrong place." Lieutenant J.G. Donhow never got any experiences or stories like that. Like Al Osey, he gave his life for his country. And my dad never, ever forgot it. That's a big part of why my dad would say, yes, indeed, celebrate, don't mourn. Almost a half century ago, Dad retired completely. About that time, someone came along whom he deeply cherished. His first grandson, the late Sean David Brown, for whom our Sean David McGinnis is named. Sean is named that way because just as my dad cherished the earlier Sean, whom we lost in 2004, so did my daughter Sylvia. She was the first Sean's cousin. Now she's today's Sean's mom. Dad's 4 other grandchildren came along between 1979 and 1986. He and my mom lived near us in Pocosa. He was huge in the kids' lives, and they were huge in his and my mom's. He took them swimming. My mom took them to the library. Some of them were baptized in this very sanctuary. We lost Mom a decade ago. She never met her great-grandchildren, but Dad did. When the first great-grandchild came along, Dad still knew that his joys and blessings, the ones we're celebrating here today, were in the absence of his boyhood friends. I mentioned earlier that there had also been a third friend from Story City. That one became Lieutenant Colonel Hubert I. Egas, United States Army Air Corps. When Dad and Al Osey and Paul Dunhow did boyhood stuff all those years in the late 20s and 30s, Hubert was the 4th. Those 4 Story City boys grew up when airplanes and flying were still romantic and enchanting. All 4 became military aviators around the time of Pearl Harbor. By now you can see where this story is going. Hubert became one of the first American aviators to shoot down an enemy plane in the Pacific. He became a lieutenant colonel quite young, at 27. Colonel Egas was commanding a squadron of P-51s in France after the Normandy invasion when he was killed in action. Earlier this year, Dad told me he was certain that if Hubert had lived, he would have become a general, an Air Force general. 4 boys in the 1920s and 1930s in Story City. They played down by the river. They swam at Lake Comar, the recreation spot my dad's dad owned. There's a big poster on the table in the dining room. You can see it's a big framed poster that tells about Lake Comar. They played on the high school football team. 4 boys, 4 military aviators. Pearl Harbor, World War II. Only my dad survived. Maybe if the late Colonel Egas of Story City had lived, he would have lived to meet his little identical twin great-grandsons, would have lived to meet something like our identical great-grandsons of my dad, like Matthew and Stephen. Those are Audrey's little brothers. They're 2 now. Maybe he would have delighted to hear stories like the one our twins' mom, Karen, told me not long ago about the twins when they were still 1. She took them to see the pediatrician. The pediatrician entered the room. Stephen was sitting on one side. Matthew was sitting on the other. The friendly doctor said, "Which one is Matthew?" Matthew goes, My dad lived a full life. Late in life, he rose above suffering and in a continuing act of leadership, taught us to exclaim, "All joy." He also taught me to say this, As long as we have Americans like him, our flag long will wave. For the land of the free and the home of the brave. God bless my dad and my mom.